Minnesota Vikings Week 1 game versus Tampa Bay Buccaneers is finally here. What we have here for you guys today is 3 key matchups we are looking out for in this game to help the Minnesota Vikings secure a victory. We're going to get into those. Make sure you hang around after this for our score predictions at the end of the video. Anyway, without further ado, man, let's
Our
jump
number
right in
3.
to our first matchup that we are watching for this upcoming game, and that is our interior defensive line and rush defense as a whole against second-year running back for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Rachaad White. Rachaad White last year in limited time, he only had 8 starts behind Leonard Fournette, but he did play in all 17 games. 481 yards on the ground, 1 touchdown. Also had 290 yards and 2 touchdowns. But this guy, Jamie, I mean, he's getting a lot of hype, especially from a lot of the Tampa Bay fans.
Yeah, dude, I think he's Rachaad White. I think he's a good player. I mean, he looked really good as a rookie last season. I know he had to share the backfield with Leonard Fournette. It wasn't a big surprise to see Leonard Fournette gone after last season because they feel so good about Rachaad White. So I do think this whole matchup in general is a sneaky matchup. And I think at the end of the game, this could be the number 1. This is our number 3 matchup for this game that we are think is the most important for victory, but I think there's a chance this could be number 1, and that's mostly because I think last season our run defense was terrible. You know, we want to talk about our coverage and all that stuff because we did give away big touchdowns, stuff like that, but teams were able to run all over us last season, and that was with Delvin Tomlinson. Now we do not have Delvin Tomlinson, and we're even putting Harrison Phillips here as our nose tackle, who is only 300 pounds, which obviously it's still a lot, but around, you want your nose tackles to be around like 330, 350. You're getting up in that range. So that's
Maybe
why
a little bit of foreshadowing there to a future person we're going to talk about.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, overall, I just think that Harrison Phillips and the rest of the defensive line, I don't know if we have enough talent there. I think it still could be the Achilles heel to our team, our entire team, that people are forgetting about. Because we don't have a ton of proven talent on that defensive line. So I do think this is just a matchup. And I also want to mention that the Vikings had a 53.3 PFF grade and as a rush defense and 45.5 in tackling. And those were our 2 lowest PFF grades of any aspect of our team last season. And in preseason, we did not look good in this area at all. Right. Every single team that we played obviously Brian Flores is coming in and he's going to bring the pass rush and all that good stuff. And that's great. And that's what we're going to be also looking forward to a lot. But will he be able to solve this problem, this stopping the run problem that we had last season?
Right. And also, I mean, and also he's like, as he said, he wants to be aggressive. Our team's going to take advantage of that and maybe do a little bit more like running back draws, get the pass rush to come up and then run it up the gut. We'll see. Teams may take advantage of his aggressiveness, but this is something to watch out for sure. Because obviously the team that runs the ball better, controls the clock, and in turn controls the game, especially if they can find a way to score some touchdowns. But very important match to watch here. And we'll see, man. We'll see. That interior defense looks a little small. Hopefully the linebackers will have to be really sound at tackling whoever we end up having in there between Asamoah, Pace, and Hicks. They got to make sure they secure their tackles there. So that's going to be huge. Moving on to our second matchup that we are watching out for. It's going to be mainly our interior offensive line against, namely, Vita Vea. Now, as Jamie mentioned earlier, our nose tackle, Harrison Phillips, not very big. Vita Vea, though, on the other hand, 6'4", 347 pounds. Last season in that Tampa Bay defense, playing in the middle, he did have 6.5 sacks, the most he's had in his entire career in a season. Obviously, he's a huge body, as we said. Look, as much as Garrett Bradbury improved last year, then he's got Ed Ingram, and who we're hoping takes big steps. I know he said yesterday, or he said during a press conference that he feels like he's improved, so we better hope so. And Ezra Cleveland, who we've talked about being maybe a little bit undersized for a guard. They didn't play well. I mean, they played solid last year, but obviously not nearly as well as they need to play, right? I mean, Kirk Cousins was pressured, however many times. It's a ridiculous number. Even the last play of the game, Ezra Cleveland let a guy get by him to lead to the 4th and 8, of course, against New York. But man, Vita Vea against Garrett Bradbury is something that is going to be a little bit worrisome because obviously you can't put all 3 guys on him. So he's going to get double teams. He has to, because our interior offensive line is just too undersized. But man, this guy can wreck a game. And if he gets after Kirk Cousins this game and gets into his head a little bit, and knocks him around a bit, this could be a long day. It could be
Yeah.
a very long day, especially even for our run game against a guy like this as well. I mean, that's including it's not only just the pass game. So Vita Vea is a guy that Kevin O'Connell, Chris Cooper on the offensive line, like you need to have a plan for Vita Vea.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think you're right here where honestly, I think this could probably, a lot of people might put this as their number one. This is our number two, but our number one key matchup that we have to at least battle in to win this game. But the only reason why I say it's not our number one is just because I just feel like we have enough talent on offense that I don't think our offense at the end of the day is going to be the reason why we lose. Even if they do get to Kirk Cousins, specifically the interior O-line, because we do have a couple studs in Darrison, Brian O'Neill, which Brian O'Neill is healthy and should be playing. So on the tackle spots there. But other than that, I think we have the talent on offense to put up points. So I'm not worried about that so much. And I do think it's really more of our defense that is more concerning for this game. But I also want to bring up, this is not just our interior and not just Garrett Bradbury versus Vita. The whole pass rush in general. Last season, Tampa Bay had an 81.1 pass rush grade for PFF, which was number one in the league. So that's something that what's that?
They have huge names on that defense.
Huge names. So, I mean, this is a defensive line versus our offensive line in general, and specifically the interior defensive line versus our interior, since that's our Achilles heel of our offense. So this is going to be a big one. This is obviously just going to be another game where we need to win in the trenches on both sides of the ball, or at least hold strong in those areas so we can let give Kirk enough time to, get the ball to all the talent we have as pass catchers. So,
and here's some of the other names our offensive line is dealing with. You got Devin White, you got Levante David, you got Shaquille Barrett, you got Joe Tryon-Troyenka, who I know he's been solid in his young career, and then you got Kalijah Cansey in the middle as well, a guy that you and I were both eye on during the draft.
Kalijah Cansey has. I didn't really look into it too much, but he did not participate in practice, and he's on their injury report.
Okay,
so we might not see him. We might not see him, but
either way,
we'll see Antoine Winfield Jr.
Yeah, and that's something that that's going to be an interesting matchup for sure. I mean, Antoine obviously has got a lot of fans in Minnesota, being a former Gopher. Obviously, his dad, Vikings great. So it'll be interesting, man. They got a lot of names in the defense that this team needs to watch out for. Our number one matchup, though, we're going to flip the script again, go back to something on their offense against our defense, and that is our corners, young and first year here in the starting two with Caleb Evans and Byron Murphy Jr. against Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So a little bit of drama surrounding Mike Evans at this point. Obviously, the contract stuff doesn't sound like it's going well. This might be his last season there, but Mike Evans is a guy who I feel every year comes in, he's vastly underrated. People always are expecting the big drop off, but the guy is not. He has yet to not eclipse 1,000 yards in a season in his career. Obviously, he is very touchdown dependent. When you get down to the red zone, he's a guy you need to watch out for. And then you got Chris Godwin, who is just an all around really good receiver, great route runner. Coming back from his knee injury last year, still played solid. Ended the season with over 1,000 yards. So I mean, he's a guy you got to watch out for. He can be a reception machine. He can hurt you over the middle. He can hurt you deep. And, you have this cornerback room is something a lot of fans are worried about. You have a lot of inexperience with Caleb Evans, Mekhi Blackman, who might be your starting nickel. Andrew Booth Jr., who hasn't shown us anything yet, really, to think that he's going to be a guy on this team. And Byron Murphy is a guy that we're expecting to be, our top guy here. And, we got him as a free agent. So free agents, obviously, I mean, Arizona's looking to shed some cap. Free agents get let go for certain reasons. I think Byron Murphy, he's looked really good in camp. I think he's going to be really good for this team, but he needs to show it because we haven't seen him yet in an actual game in purple. So this is a tall task. So Brian Flores, though, I trust him enough to make sure this defense is ready, but you have two studs here. And Baker Mayfield, say what you will, he's the former number one overall pick. If you give him time, he's no slouch. The dude can play. The dude can play football, which is why we have to get after him. But this is something that's going to be this is going to be a matchup to watch, especially with how bad we were against receivers last year in the pass defense game.
Yeah, I mean, you're right on the button with. I mean, both these guys had over 1,000 yards last season. The offense runs through these two players, regardless of what quarterback is, whether it's Tom Brady or Baker Mayfield. Like you said, if Baker Mayfield has the time, he's going to be able to throw to these guys if they're wide open. And again, like that's a good point on Murphy. Like even though Murphy had one really good season last season, he was looking pretty good before his injury again. And he's been looking good in training camp, but we have not seen him actually on the field as a Viking yet. And it's just that whole room is unproven. We already mentioned a Caleb Evans, second-year player, had a bunch of injuries last year with the concussions. Andrew Booth Jr. was out with all his injuries last season and hasn't proved anything not enough in preseason that we saw. And then of course Blackman, we saw some good things with him, but he is a rookie, so it's so unproven, and you have these veterans up against them. So I do think like this is a matchup we just have to try our best to cover these two guys, and then it really comes up to Flores by putting enough pressure on Baker Mayfield where he's not getting enough time to find these guys open, because they're, the reality is these guys are stud veterans. They're going to have opportunities to get open. It's what's going to happen. Even if our cornerbacks look like they're doing pretty good out there, it's going to happen with them. So we need to bring on the pass rush 100%, I think. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. And man, I'm just hoping. That's what's weird about this whole thing for us is it's a lot of us. We have a lot of unproven. Last year we didn't have tons on the pass rush, so now it's hard for us to not pinpoint our where our deficiencies going into our matchups, instead of saying like Justin Jefferson versus their corners or something like that, like more of a positive one. It's because we have so many deficiencies and we've yet to really see them in a real game. Right. So we need to see them prove themselves at least to some extent. And if our secondary is as bad as it was last season, they could definitely score all over us. Especially if our rushing defense is also as bad as it was last season, I mean, their offense should do well enough.
Yeah.
And then same with our interior. I mean, if our interior gets absolutely blown up, we've seen over and over again against Cowboys and the Philadelphia, the two biggest losses we had last season, that we can lose a game and our offense, even with all the talent, can get disrupted with that kind of pressure. So.
Yeah. And a big thing, I mean, just to jump into some other matchups we could watch out for in this game, a big thing, if you want to limit what these two could do to your defense, you also need to make Baker Mayfield uncomfortable. And that goes back to our pass rush, which, again, is a ginormous question mark, especially in this new defense. I know one of the matchups I'm really excited to watch is best on best. Tristan Wirfs, one of the best tackles in football right now, one of the best left tackles, against Danielle Hunter, who, when he's at his peak, can be one of the best pass rushers in football getting after the quarterback. So in order to make, and outside of that, we have Marcus Davenport, who knows, the guy's been up and down his career, showing amazing flashes, but he can't stay healthy, only coming off a half-sack season, which people do forget, and people always mention. You got to look at his pressures. He had a tremendous amount of pressures, never got to the quarterback. But I mean, we don't know what he's going to be at in this defense, as well as, you have Pat Jones and DJ Wanham, who haven't really been too much. I mean, Wanham's had a couple of nice sack seasons, but I mean, at the end of the day, we don't have any really proven like top-notch pass rushers outside of Danielle Hunter. So him against Tristan Wirfs is going to be huge, because I mean, that's going to take away that left side. So then whoever's on the opposite side, Marcus Davenport, needs to do something here. But I'm really excited to watch that Tristan Wirfs versus Danielle Hunter battle, and I think that's going to be a lot of fun. And like I said, a big one. You got to get after Baker. You got to make him uncomfortable so he cannot get the ball to those two.
Yeah, exactly. And from the interior defensive line, like that's definitely unproven from a pass rush scenario. I mean, we already seen 3 of these players on this team last season, and we definitely struggled in that area. And that was with Delvin Tomlinson, who's actually our best pass rusher on the D line last season, and we don't have him anymore. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But yeah, with Flores, that's another huge key matchup, is Flores' pass rush for Baker Mayfield. We have to disrupt Baker Mayfield to I think for sure to beat them and stop that offense, which I think is definitely possible. And I do think that is the reason why, and we'll give you our score predictions pretty soon here, but is the reason why I think we end up winning this game. Is I do think Flores is going to come in with these packages. You got Ivan Pace now, who looks like an absolute stud in a blitz scenario. We saw Jay Ward as another rookie. And then of course you have Harrison Smith, getting him on the line more than we did last year for sure. Because Jay Ward showed in preseason the best example of what we should be using Harrison Smith for and what we will be using it for, and Flores as well. So we have all those kinds of different scenarios with Flores, and I think that would probably be my number 4th matchup, would be Flores's pass rush versus Baker Mayfield. Other than that, other matchups, of course, like our wide receivers versus their cornerbacks. Like if I'm them, that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried about TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, KJ Osborne, Jalen Naylor, Oliver, like all of them. Like that is going to be our key, absolute key from victory, as far as like that is going to be the difference of the reason why we win this game against them, is because of how elite that room is. And I do think it's one of the best positional groups in the entire NFL. So that's what we have going for us. And then of course, if Kirk stays up on his feet, he should have no problem getting the ball to them. And then even from a rushing standpoint, that'd be another really good matchup, will be Alexander Madison and Ty Chandler up against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who actually last season, their worst stat as a team was in the rush defense. They had a 55.9 PFF grade with 50.7 tackling grade, which was the worst on their entire team. So that's another thing, a matchup I think we're going to see. I think we're going to see a little bit more running than some people might expect, and I think we're going to look good in that area. So yeah, I mean, those are some extra matchups that I'm thinking of.
Yeah, absolutely. So all that leads to, do the Minnesota Vikings win this game, and score predictions. So Jamie, start us off. What do you got?
I'm going to say yes, the Minnesota Vikings win this game, and it's going to be I'm going to go with 24-17. I think even though we have all this offensive talent, I think we're going to be relying on them quite a bit here. And I think we have an offense that could put up 30 points almost every week. I think we have that type of talent, but against this defense and this pass rush with interior, I do think it's going to be a little bit worrisome for us. So we're not going to go lights out on them there. And then again, with our defense, with all that unproven talent, and especially from a rush defense standpoint, a run defense standpoint, I think they are going to put up some points on us. So that's mine. 24-17 Vikings W. Okay. Let's go.
I'm going to go 24-14. It's going to start off slow. It's going to be close to start. Obviously, a little shaking off the rust from not playing in the preseason. But I do think by the beginning of the fourth quarter, we have this thing pretty much locked down. I mean, I think it's 21-7 going into the fourth quarter. And I think we just kind of eat the ball up, eat up the time. They score on the last drive of the game, and the game's over. Minnesota Vikings win. Start off the season 1-0 in the ever-important opening week game. Let us know your thoughts on this game, score predictions down in the comments. We'll see you guys next time right here. Hit subscribe.
Skol Vikes.